Hey, everybody. Welcome to How to Be Mesmerizing. It's Tim Shurr, and we have another extraordinary guest with us. Gino Wickman is in the house. Gino, welcome to the show.
Tim, pleasure to be here. Looking forward to this.
Yes, me too. So you are one of the authorities on the entrepreneurial mindset. You've written about this. You've walked the talk. You've helped thousands of people. You've done over 1,900 programs. You really are one of the leading authorities on this. So let's talk a little bit about the Entrepreneurial Leap, which is your latest book, and what an entrepreneur is.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I'll do my best. I'm going to try and give you like a 2-minute history because I think it's important for your audience to know where this comes from. And so I've been an entrepreneur since I was 21 years old. Very untraditional road where barely graduated high school with a 2.3 GPA, did not go to college, was not for me. I was just a pure entrepreneur, but sadly didn't realize it. And so I bumped along in my 20s, but ultimately ended up taking over a family business, doing a big turnaround, armed with amazing mentors. I was a fanatic for learning. And once I realized what I was and kind of what my purpose is, I then set out to help entrepreneurs because I realized that's why I'm on the face of this earth. I created a system called EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. I wrote a book called Traction. That book has sold over 1 million copies. We have over 140,000 companies running on EOS. And through all of that, I made a decision that when I turn 50, I want to focus on the front end of the entrepreneurial journey. And I want to help anyone that thinks they might be an entrepreneur or somebody who took their entrepreneurial leap is kind of scratching their head. And that's what led to me writing Entrepreneurial Leap. And that brings us to where we are with this podcast. And so that's the fast history. But there's an old saying by Danielle Kennedy that says, we teach what we needed the most. And that's what I'm doing. I was this 18-year-old kid. I was lost, confused, insecure. I was a mislabeled derelict. Well, here I was, this entrepreneur in the making, and I didn't realize what I was until 29. And so I lost 11 years of clarity. Still did a lot of the right things, bumping along, working hard, trying to figure it all out. Yeah. But for anyone out there, age 13 to 113, if you think you might be an entrepreneur or you've taken the entrepreneurial leap, you've come to the right place. And to ultimately answer your last question, what is an entrepreneur? In my very strong opinion, after helping tens of thousands of entrepreneurs, a true entrepreneur in the making or an entrepreneur is somebody that possesses 6 essential traits. I call them visionary, passionate, problem solver, driven, risk taker, and responsible. And you are born with these traits. They cannot be taught. I hope I'm wrong on that because then if I'm wrong, 7.5 billion people can become an entrepreneur, but I don't buy it because of what I've seen and the research and experience with this book. But if you were born with those traits, then this is the life you're meant to live. And it's about 4% of the population that has these traits. We've created a wonderful assessment on the website. It's free. You answer 25 questions about yourself. You get a score. Rule of thumb, if you score 90 or higher, odds are you are probably an entrepreneur in the making.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you about that, Gino, because some people, there's always a different opinion for everything. Some people believe that everybody can be an entrepreneur, and other people believe that maybe there's only 3% of the population who are kind of born with that particular set of characteristics that you described, which I think you really nailed it with those 6. That's really good. So, but you feel like after all the research that you've done, that it's more of something you're kind of born with, that kind of mindset or attitude or those characteristics.
Yeah. And not only that, I am convinced of it. Okay. And so, and I'll give you an example. So I always love to do a little riff on the 6 essential traits because, what I'm trying to do is save lives here. Okay. So in other words, somebody who's not an entrepreneur that takes a leap, I'm trying to save you 10 years of hell because it's not all it's cracked up to be this life, and right now the world's being sold a bill of goods that being an entrepreneur is like the only destination in life. And it's just not true. Again, like I said, it's for 4%. Your study shows 3%. Point is, it's a small percentage of the population. And the good news is if you're not, there's like 1,000 other career choices. This is just one of many. So the riff is this, and please fill out the assessment on the website, e-leap.com. It's free, but just scan your body as I share this with the audience out there. So, is this you? Visionary means that you have lots of ideas. You're able to connect the dots. You have a 6th sense. You see things others don't see. You see around corners. You're able to put things together. Bottom line, you're an idea person. Passionate means that you have an undying passion for your product, your service, this impact you want to have on the world. Strong belief you want to fill a void. You want to put a dent in the universe. Number 3, problem solver means that you are a creative problem solver. When setbacks arise, you lean into them. You're an optimist by nature. You see solutions where the rest of the world is seeing problems. Driven means you have this internal fire, this undying desire to win. You're competitive. You want to succeed, a sense of urgency. You're self-motivated. You love to hustle. You love working hard. Risk taker means that you don't freeze at the sight of the first tough problem. You're rebellious. You don't suffer from analysis paralysis. You're willing to fail. You don't want to fail, but you know failure is part of the process. And you tend to beg for forgiveness instead of ask for permission. And then responsible. This one always catches people by surprise. But responsible means you blame no one. There's 2 types of people in the world. People that when something goes wrong, they blame everyone else. And then the other half takes responsibility. And so this is one of the examples for how I know you're born with it. Because how on earth can a family with 4 kids, same parents, same upbringing, same household, half of them take responsibility, half don't? It's nature over nurture. So these things, they just cannot be taught. And it's hard for me to say that, quite frankly, because there's an entrepreneur in the making out there that wants to do this, but they don't have these traits. And they're being told, you can learn these. You can learn how to be passionate. You can learn how to be a visionary. You can learn how to be responsible. I don't buy it. But remember what I said. I hope that I'm wrong. I pray that I'm wrong, because that means that 7.5 billion people can all become entrepreneurs. All of my experience shows, and all of the feedback from all of the entrepreneurs I've worked with and talked to, it's been in them. In other words, they were 8 and they were exhibiting little signs of entrepreneurialism, and 10 and 12 and 15. So it's just been with you forever. And for a lot of people, it's been there simmering. And unfortunately, you had parents that weren't entrepreneurs, and your crazy ball of energy as an entrepreneur scared the hell out of them. And so they kind of kept you down because they were afraid to fully let you be the entrepreneur that you are. And so some of you out there are going to discover today, in reading this book, you're going to discover that, holy cow, this is the life for me. And I just was not made aware that this opportunity exists.
Brilliant, brilliant. So 2 questions on that then. So first, I agree with you about that bill of goods that people are being sold, that the entrepreneur is the only way to go if you want any kind of security and freedom in your life. I've been an entrepreneur, and in practice, this will be my 27th year. There is no security. There is no, freedom. I thought if I had more money, I would have more freedom. No, the more success I had, the more stuff I had to do, right? The more people to take care of and businesses to run. And so, and then there was times where it didn't matter how much money I spent on marketing, clients were not coming in. And then there'd be times I didn't spend a dime on marketing, and I had more clients than I could take care of. Right. And so there is this myth that you've got it easier if you're in business for yourself. And that is not accurate. The second, or the question I want to ask you, the difference between maybe responsibility and discipline, because in the interviews I've done with so many amazing people, the Bob Proctors, Brian Tracy, so many amazing people, and I'll say, what's the secret to success? And they'll say discipline. Right. And, if I ask Seth Godin about his traits, he says, no, I'm not any of this stuff. I just, I've trained myself to be this way. So do you believe that that people just have discipline, or they don't, or that's something they can learn?
No, I believe discipline is something you can learn. I think that's a whole nother category and a whole conversation. I've literally launched a new business and a new piece of content called 10 Disciplines for Managing and Maximizing Your Energy. If we get to that by the end, I'm happy to share what that is, but anyone can learn those disciplines. Those are not traits. So when I talk about these 6 essential traits you are born with. You can't learn a trait. But with a discipline, 100%, because what I agree with in the statement about what does it take to be successful, it takes discipline. For me, I would say hard work. Those are interchangeable to me, because to really practice a discipline, it is so hard, because you have to be so consistent and you have to master that discipline. So I call it hard work. Others call it discipline, potato, but I view that as very, very different than a trait.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of people that work really hard, but I wouldn't say that they have discipline.
Yeah, that's well said. I couldn't agree with you more
Yeah,
there.
and so discipline is doing stuff that you know is going to get you a great result, and no one's making you do it.
Yeah.
Right? You're not. It's like not a job where you have to go or you don't get your paycheck. It's something you want to accomplish, like losing weight or, improving your personal education. No one's making you do it, but you decide I'm going to do it anyway, and I don't mind doing hard things, which
Yeah,
was one of your traits.
Yeah, and thank you for that clarifier. That's so important, because what I'm trying to say with hard work is to practice a discipline. And so your audience out there, they're going to read lots of books, listen to lots of podcasts. You and I, throughout our life, we've learned lots of disciplines. You've got to choose the disciplines that work well and best for you to accomplish what you want to accomplish. And practicing a discipline is hard. So thank you for that, because, digging a ditch is really hard work. And, you're not necessarily going to make 250 grand a year digging a ditch unless you own the company, of course. But good point.
But that takes discipline.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. So I'm curious, what do you say then when you come across people who want to be a business owner, or they want to have that laptop lifestyle, or they looking for that side hustle, and they feel like I'm reading all the books and I've created vision boards and I'm giving myself positive affirmations and I watched The Secret movie 50 times, and yet it's not working for me.
Yeah.
I'm not, the money part isn't coming in.
Yeah.
And you start to realize maybe they don't have the entrepreneurial traits. How do you handle that?
Yeah. And this, I think, is hopefully the most, I hope that this point will come across clear to your entire audience. And this is probably the most important point of this conversation. And so in the book, I teach something called the Entrepreneurial Range, because everything you described as an entrepreneur in your question is not an entrepreneur to me. So hopefully I can make this clear.
Okay.
So the entrepreneurial range. So if you're listening, you have something to write with and on. If you draw an arc in front of you, or just in your mind, if you're listening and you're driving, imagine an arc. Okay. And above that arc, you see the words, the entrepreneurial range. That's what this tool is called that I'm describing. On the far left side of that range, if you write the word self-employed, and then on the far right side, you write true entrepreneur. Here's the point. What I'm talking about is a true entrepreneur has 6 essential traits, and a true entrepreneur are the people that own a business that are on the right side of the entrepreneurial range. Okay. And on the far side of the right range, that red line, that range, these are the greatest entrepreneurs of all time. Elon Musk, Oprah Winfrey, Sarah Blakely, Walt Disney, Henry Ford. If we now go all the way to the left end of the range, you can still be self-employed. You can still own your own business, but you're not an entrepreneur. And what these on the far left end, these are the people with a side hustle, a freelancer, a lifestyle business, like you said, a laptop job or whatever you called that. There's no shame, no matter where you are on that range. But I always like to say, in the crudest form, in the simplest form, on the far left end of the range, if you have handy skills, you could go out and you could become a handyman or a handy woman, charge $60 an hour, make $100 grand a year, 6-figure income. And if you're any good, you will be busy for the rest of your life as a one-person show. And that is somebody who is self-employed, completely free. And I have the utmost respect for that person. Okay. And so that's not an entrepreneur, but that is somebody who is self-employed. And I urge you out there, if you have those skills, you will be making 6 figures within a year if you will go do what I just told you. However, if you have the 6 essential traits and you do that, you will not be able to turn your mind off from realizing, wait a second, if I hire somebody for $25 an hour to go finish that job for me, and I go get another job and start working on that job, and then I hire another person, you are not going to be able to stop yourself from turning that into a construction company, because it's your wiring. These 6 essential traits, you can't stop yourself from building an organization. And so an entrepreneur are the people on the right side of that range that build organizations with people. Okay. And so with that said, if you score low on the entrepreneur in the making assessment, doesn't mean it's a death sentence that you can't own your own business and be self-employed. You're just probably not a true entrepreneur. And by the way, prove me wrong. I would love to be proven wrong on this, but it's perfectly fine to be that one person show, all those things you said, lifestyle business, side hustle, freelancer. Amen and hallelujah to that. You are free and self-employed.
Yeah, I mean, that's brilliant. I'm really impressed with how you laid it out that way, because when I went into corporate America, I would actually do presentations on developing an entrepreneurial mindset, which perhaps wasn't the best use of time based on what you're saying, but I was trying to install, the idea of, there is no failure, there's just feedback. Right?
Yeah. And by the way, on that note, 1 out of 10 podcasts, it comes up where somebody says, well, what about intrapreneurs? Why don't we bring this book to the corporate world and teach all these employees to be intrapreneurs? And with all due love and respect, this is my answer every time. If one of those employees are a true entrepreneur and read that book and discover they have the 6 essential traits, they are leaving that company in like 3 to 6 months. And so I say, listen, I'll teach this to your audience as long as you're comfortable with a mass exodus of everybody who truly is an entrepreneur in your company. So for what that's worth,
that's exactly
there's my impassioned plea there.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. Because usually the only people that, that would have those characteristics that you're really describing in a company is usually the founder of the company.
You got it. You got it, my friend. And then the other thing I'd love to say is, so the other thing is, it's like this word entrepreneur, it's been glamorized. It's the definition has been broadened. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, and there's no shame in not being one. And it's okay to be self-employed, be a business owner, be a one-person show. So, I don't know what happened in the last 10 years, but it happened, and and everybody's trying to be an entrepreneur. And I'm just trying to head it off at the pass, save some lives, and call it what it is.
Well, I think that's admirable, and it probably relieves a lot of pressure from a lot of people who are trying to be something that they're really not.
Yes.
I think the word entrepreneur really got glamorized by the people who were selling services that entrepreneurs would use to build their business.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And so all the ads, all the marketing, all the, people that say, hey, I'm going to help you with your startup, everybody that's teaching all the online sales skills and funnels and funnel building and all that stuff, are probably the ones that are glamorizing it. And so, you're the only one that I've really met that says, whoa, wait a second, let's take a step back and make sure that you're not setting yourself up for a huge failure or a waste of time and energy when that's not who you are.
Yeah.
Like I've met several people who, a few in particular, but several people who they were very talented at what they did, but they lost so much money trying to do this side hustle, right? Some of them, really struggled and even lost their business because they were putting so much money into something that was going to be passive income for them, right? And they tried so hard. So they might have started being, doing the stock market or, day trading or, Bitcoin or something that was going to make them that fast, quick change, because that's what entrepreneurs do. We take risks and we keep going and we keep going, and they forget that word or the characteristic of responsibility.
Yeah. And I'd throw one more thing in just to try to take the sexy out of it and put the reality into it. And, so again, we're all reading the articles, about the great entrepreneurs, and everybody thinks the ultimate goal is to become a tech billionaire. And this is entrepreneurship, when, the real dark secret is most entrepreneurs die broke. It is excruciatingly difficult and really hard to build a business. And very frankly, most entrepreneurs have psychological issues. These traits I'm describing, these are not all healthy traits. Responsibility, we take too much responsibility. There's 2 literal disorders in psychology. One is people that don't take enough responsibility. Others are ones that take too much responsibility. I'm not here to say what's good or bad, but the level of responsibility we take as entrepreneurs is not healthy. We are workaholics. We are gamblers. We are alcoholics. We are messed up people. Okay. But there's good and bad in all of us. And these are the crazy beings that we are, and we build companies. And again, they're not all screwed up, but in my experience, most are. And the more we can create awareness around that will scare the people away that shouldn't be doing it. and hopefully help the ones that are become much more healthy. Because what I do is I help them create their ideal life, give them sanity and peace, and that's what it's all about for me.
Yeah, I love it. Well, that's where I came in and really found my sweet spot as far as helping people, because I would say I'm much more of a business owner with a set of special forces ninja skills when it comes to changing behavior and releasing people from self-limiting unconscious beliefs. And I came up with the term achiever syndrome, because so many of the high performing entrepreneurs and business owners that I was coaching and helping, that's exactly what they were dealing with. Right. And so they had a hard time turning it off. They weren't happy unless they were hustling in some way. They're very neglectful of their family and loved ones because they were trying to make that next dollar.
Yeah.
It's not about if you're happy or sad. It's all about momentum.
Yeah.
Right. Are we making progress on the next shiny, whatever it is?
Yes.
And how many projects can we get going at the same time?
Yeah.
And it's very, very defeating. And so we have to cope with that somehow. Plus they're chasing validation.
Yeah.
That's still, if I'm successful enough, people will really love me then.
Yeah. And it's really, I love that you're bringing that up. And I love how your podcast, you get into a lot of this psychology and you totally get it. So there's an amazing book I read in the last 3 months called Driven by Dr. Doug Brackman. If you're familiar with that, I don't know if you've had him on, but if your audience is driven people, it's the best book I've read on getting to that psychology that you're talking about and the pain that is a driven person and an entrepreneur, but also how to solve that pain, So
yeah,
it's a fascinating book, and it takes you right to exactly what you just said verbatim.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know how to solve it. You just upgrade those unconscious beliefs that I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. If I don't have this or that, I won't be loved. Still chasing the approval of mom or dad. Right. All those beliefs that we absorb when we're kids that affect us 20 years later.
Yeah, and we're always trying to fill a hole. We're always trying to fill that empty hole, and it cannot be filled. It cannot be filled. You are the only one that can fill it. There's nothing external that will ever fill it.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Success, happiness, inner peace is an inside job. And so it's funny because I would never have thought that I'd be in corporate America talking about loving yourself.
Yeah.
But it's all I do. Now, especially because I'm going to be 52 this year and I don't really care at all what people think and, about me and I'm past that. And so, and that's what it really is. How do we love ourselves? And then, it allows us to finally relax and feel safe where most people are afraid to stop.
I love that you're saying I'm 54 and it's right around 50 is when it all got really clear to me, man. And I learned how to fill that hole.
Yeah. Every 10 years, our priorities shift a little bit on what's most important. And when we round the corner and for the second half that, those priorities definitely change what really matters to us. And it turns out it's not a bunch more money and more awards and more pat on the backs. Yeah, very good.
Good stuff.
So tell me a little bit then about the, it was your 10 principles for managing your energy or 10 disciplines for optimizing your energy. Tell me a little bit about that and why did you go in that direction?
Yeah,
is it because we're over 50 now?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, right. So I just want to bookend the conversation we just had. So for what it's worth, the book, The Entrepreneurial Leap, it's Entrepreneurial Leap is what it's called, is written in 3 parts. And everything we just talked about is the confirm part of the book. So we first have to confirm you are an entrepreneur in the making. Part 2 is showing you a glimpse of the life and all that is possible and all of your options. Third part is path, which shows you a path to greatly increase your odds of success and help you avoid half the mistakes. So I wanted to pull that all together for your audience. For anyone that thinks they're an entrepreneur or just took their leap and wants to do a checkup, that's the book for them. As we go into 10 disciplines, what I'll share about this is, so I've spent almost 30 years obsessing about entrepreneurs and success and helping them be successful and to have taken them to a point where what I call helping them live their ideal life. And the final icing on the cake was a book I wrote and came out with called The EOS Life, otherwise known as The Ideal Life. And so that's all this journey of helping that entrepreneur and ultimately their people live that life. Where I'm going now is with something I call now taking it to a whole nother level and helping people live their optimal life. And so what that is something where I got very, very vulnerable about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. I was invited to keynote our EOS conference, and it was time for a new talk. And I just put myself out there and shared 10 disciplines that I live by in my life to manage and maximize my energy. And people are always talking about how much passion I have. Believe me, it's not a coincidence. It is, to our point from earlier, these are disciplines. So I shared this with the audience. It was so incredibly well received that I did it the next year. And then I was invited to speak on it again with a different audience. And as I wrote this EOS Life book, I just decided I'm going to put it in that book. I did something very weird. I put it in that book as a free mini book. It's the last 30 pages of the EOS Life book. Kind of weird. I am going to write the 10 disciplines book someday, but I've joined forces with a dear friend and a client of mine, and we are now bringing these 10 disciplines to the world. And it's just powerful stuff like 10-year thinking, knowing thyself, which I know is near and dear to you, Hart. I can already read you. Being still, which is all about you figure out your form of silence, whether that's meditation, prayer. And then it's tactical, practical stuff like knowing your work container and protecting that work container so you know exactly the value and the craft you're going to bring to the world. And so again, if all of this is appealing, the10disciplines.com, it's the number 10. If you want to see what we're doing there, we're launching a video-based journey. And what we're doing is we're inviting racehorses on this journey. And so these are people that have the basics down. You eat relatively well, you exercise, you sleep, and you have work ethic. And so you're relatively successful. We are going to show you how to live the optimal life. And we're going deep, you know. And so I love what you said, because in the know thyself discipline, that's the biggest opportunity, because it's what I say is I say you must you must know yourself to be yourself. The goal is to be yourself. And I like to say, let your freak flag fly, live you and be you in all of your glory, which obviously you've just learned as you turn the corner on 50, and I have as well. And so my impassioned plea is to help people completely let their freak flag fly, live 100% from their soul, and learn how to fully listen to their soul and clear out all that crap, because they were born perfect, and where they are today, something screwed them up, probably many people, and it's time to shed all of that, get back to hearing what your soul wants for you and fully living from that. And so that one we go really deep into, but that's the 10 those are the 10 disciplines, or a piece of them.
Outstanding. I love it. So where can people learn more about you, and where can they find, again, can you repeat that URL for the entrepreneurial assessment that you have?
You bet. So for Entrepreneurial Leap, and anyone that thinks they're an entrepreneur or just took their Entrepreneurial Leap, it's e-leap.com. There's a free assessment. The first 30 pages of the book is free and available. There are a ton of tools. We put out an article every other week, a video every week. So a ton of content for anybody that wants to be an entrepreneur. The second thing we talked about is the10disciplines.com, the number 10 for the 10 disciplines. And then just kind of all things. There's 5 pieces of content that I put out to the world and I spend all day, every day talking about. If you want to just see the whole enchilada, go to GinoWickman.com, and that's kind of the epicenter of everything. But those are probably the 3 places I would send people. And sorry for giving 3. I usually only give 1, but I love that you brought up the other stuff.
Absolutely. Well, Gino, this has been absolutely fabulous, and you've brought a lot of clarity to everybody who's listening. To really, I love the range and how you've clarified where we're at with you know, how we fit into entrepreneur versus business owner, and all is good. It's just trying to figure out where you fit so that you're going with the flow instead of constantly having resistance. So it's brilliant. So thank you very much for being a mesmerizing guest on our program today. And yeah, I appreciate you being here.
Thank you for what you're doing, Tim. Really appreciate it.
You bet.